All right, y'all. So this is Mr. Honeyhead. Today we're going to be talking about the principles of design. This is a fairly lengthy PowerPoint, but we will be going through it as quickly as possible. So we're going to be looking at design fundamentals, which these are most of the fundamentals that are known to most professionals as the principles of design. So you have proportion, rhythm, emphasis, balance, scale, harmony, and we're going to be going over all this. All right. It's going to be this is going to be a very quick overview, some simple little notes, and then obviously. So first you have scale, which is the entire perspective. The objective with scale is for four objects to be alike. There is four objects to be alike or harmonious in dimensions and mass as they relate to each other. So in other words, you want all the objects to look, for the most part, like they relate to each other in terms of the scale from the standpoint of as each object relates to each other. You don't want like a really tiny, tiny chair, but a really big TV. Or, for example, you don't want like a really, really big couch, but like a tiny, like 2-inch TV, okay, or 10-inch TV. So the thing is, you want things to be in proportion with each other and all the objects in the room to look like they all fit together. So with that, we also have proportion, which is where you look at the whole section and then just make sure that things are in proportion to each other, as either a section of a room that you see or in terms of looking at, for example, something in relation to it parts to its whole. So as you see this picture, everything looks really, clean, crisp, looks really nice, but, it may look a little bit out of place, for example, if that couch, for example, had really long legs, or if the couch was really, really tall and covered up half of the pictures, it did not set up the proportions of the overall scene of what we're seeing. So you want to make sure that not only are things scaled to where they look like they work with each other, but also that the individual objects themselves look like they work with each other as well. So next we have rhythm, which talks about the flow of a room throughout the home. So in other words, when you look at it, does um, so when something has rhythm, it has to drive your eye around the room. That's pretty much what it is. It drives your eye around the room and sets up the idea for design. So, for example, when you walk into my classroom, there are certain things that will draw your eye to where maybe you need to be. So, for example, if you know that you walk a certain path to get to a desk every day, there is the sense of rhythm. If you walked in the classroom looked totally different than what you're used to, there's not going to be a big sense of rhythm in that standpoint. So as we see in this picture, there's that sense of rhythm that brings you all the way around the room and lets you take it all in. Once again, a lot of this can be very, very abstract, very subjective, but as we go through, um, I will be able to explain more while we have in-person class. Emphasis is the important or focal point in a room. So there may be more than one focal point, but one will typically be primary. Typically, what I like to say is what draws in your attention automatically? What is the focal point? What draws your attention in? So, for example, in this picture, and like I said, this can also be very subjective, but what is the focal point? What is the first thing you see that really pops out in the room? It may be the fireplace because it's kind of a different color than everything else. And the standpoints also. A lot of people like, for example, outside of housing, you have people who wear outfits and stuff, and then in their outfits they have in their outfits, they may have like one particular piece that stands out among their outfit, and that becomes the focal point that kind of brings the whole outfit together. A lot of times that focal point is going to be something that you want to be right there. It's the first thing you see in the room, and it just really gives it that sense of pop. Next, we have balance, which is equilibrium through symmetry. And we're going to be discussing balance a little bit more in depth, so don't get too tied up. But what you're seeing in the sense of balance is that certain things look the same on the right as they do on the left. And if they don't look the same as they are on the right as they do on the left, then what you're seeing is that if they don't look the same on the right as they do on the left, then the objects that are different sort of offset each other or keep not offset each other, but sort of keep each other in balance. So you may have, like, for example, you may have this one little chair, but it's balanced by the table and the giraffe. Okay. So, it kind of has that sense of balance there. And then harmony is creating the feeling of suitability and unifying elements and objects and adding a variety of interest and diversity. So it's the idea to create something that is agreeable and appealing, um, that basically won't, tire you in the long run. So in other words, the more you look at it, the more you sit there and say, that looks nice. It's things of that nature. You want to create that sense of harmony, the sense of being used to how things look, and understanding that all these parts and pieces work together. And now we're going to go into design elements, which are really very big, important parts for principles of design. We have a lot of these design elements, which are space, shape and form and mass, line, texture and pattern, light, and color. So space is we have we have need for space. That's pretty much it. So the big thing is that when you're designing something, you want to make sure that you have a sense of balance and proportion in an area when it comes to space. So in other words, when you look at it, is the space filled with objects that provide you a sense of um, a sense of ease in the room? Is there an equal amount of space that is being filled up, but also is there, space for walking and space that is not filled up? So a lot of times that's what's very important when you look into a room and recognize it and utilize space. It's very, very important. Next, we have shape and form. Shape is the two-dimensional outline, while form is the three-dimensional. So the shape is just sort of like what you see, like just when you look at it as, for example, like kind of like a flat surface. How does that look? But then you start analyzing the aspects of it three-dimensionally. A lot of people will say like, okay, well, just as it being just like completely flat, it's perfectly fine. It looks nice, but then they start analyzing it from a three-dimensional shape, and it may take on a different look to itself as you walk around the room and look at it. Place a huge emphasis on shape and form in terms of us learning this stuff, but it is an element or a element of design that I would like you to know. Mass is the actual object density of an object. In other words, how dense does it look? How much space does it take up? In other words, we have this kind of person that's sitting right there. This object has a lot of mass. It is taking up a lot of room compared to this little person that's all the way in the back there. So you see that this density, it's the optical density of an object. In other words, how much eye space is it taking up when you're looking at it? And next we have line. Now, line is very, very interesting. And once again, we're going to be discussing these in more depth. But line has the ability to basically create a sense of height, a sense of width, and then the appearance of activity, movement, or flow. All right, so that's very, very important to know. And once again, there's these different types that we have and the psychological effects that they bring on. But once again, we're going to be discussing these more in depth. Then you have texture, which is the actual feel of a surface. And sometimes that can play a big part into how you design something, because certain textures will give off certain looks. And then on top of that, there may be certain textures that, for example, you may have clients that don't want those types of textures. And then another big one is color, which we will be touching on very, very in depth. And once again, it is probably the most personal and evocative element in design because we all have our favorite colors and we all have our least favorite colors. And many people will make their associations with a room based off of a color. All right. So, very, very important. Next is patterns, which is typically just their forms arranged in an orderly manner. A lot of times, once again, the key word is orderly manner. Combining patterns, once again, can be very tricky, but if you're doing it correctly, it can come out looking very, very nice. And then light, which we will be discussing next week, is a very critical element of fine art. And once again, light does do a very good job of bringing out certain colors. It does do things that um, bring out certain textures. So it's very, very important and a very key element. So we will be discussing that in more depth. So once again, these are your principles of design. These are your elements of design. You will be having a short little mini quiz. You can retake it as many times as you want to take care of this. So what we're going to do is just go ahead and once again fill out the little chart that you see, and then once again just submit that, and then we're good.